Hello, everyone. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the law of one teachings today, and the evolution our soul may go through and grow through actually, um, in terms of what Ra describes in the law of one. So for those who may not know, the law of one is actually a channeled book, channeled writings by a woman in the 1980s, I believe. And they had made contact with an entity that we know as Ra. So a lot of people attribute Ra to the sun god, because of Egyptian knowledge in a sense, but they say they're actually a collective consciousness that ascended quickly from Venus. And actually Tesla was also from Venus and part of this collective consciousness, but he decided to incarnate on Earth as a wanderer. And a wanderer is a soul that has evolved in consciousness and comes back to help those in lower consciousness in a sense. So that's why Tesla was hundreds of years ahead of his time, because he was in direct contact with that higher consciousness and slowly remembering after coming through the veil of forgetfulness and entering this 3D reality, the basis of this reality, and making incredible discoveries just by his intuitiveness and being able to tap into that collective consciousness and the Akashic records. But anyways, in terms of our soul's progress, I was actually having this discussion today with someone on Twitter. So we in this third dimension, we have the choice for a positive or a negative path forward from this. But let's start with the first dimension. First dimension is basically like you are a rock or a plant. And I think I might have talked about this in another video, but that is the first dimension of awareness. So you are just being. There's no awareness, nothing. You're just it. You can feel. You have the same sort of senses, I would say, as anything else. Just so, like, as you may have noticed, like plants, or if you didn't notice, plants are very similar to animals, so that's why there kind of is a contradiction for people like that are vegans, and no judgment whatsoever. But plants can also feel when they're being cooked or boiled or eaten, or can feel suffering. And to what degree they experience suffering, I don't think, I don't know. But it's said that they do experience suffering, and then you kind of get to a logical inconsistency, like whose suffering matters more. So in a sense, but that's a different argument. The whole vegan argument, it's just a different argument. But plants, whatever, the elements, you are basically one of the elements. And you can experience suffering, you can experience beingness. Once you've gone through the evolutionary cycle, Ra describes it as being, could be billions of years, then you graduate to second density, which is becoming aware, right? So you now have a perspective. You're able to move out into the world and seek to survive, basically. So it's like kind of basically the awareness, but without the awareness that you're aware, right? So you're in the world, and you're operating solely on instinct, pretty much, right? Like an animal. And then you evolve to awareness of being aware, which is us humans. We now have a perception of self. And this is where the illusion of separation comes in, because now we perceive another, right? So we have awareness of self, perceiving another, and it seems like we are separated, okay? And this is where the choice comes in, where we can either become conscious or remain unconscious by not questioning anything. Like, oh yeah, you're there, I'm here, that's all there is. I'm just this body, and there's nothing more than this. There's no creator, nothing really. We're just a product of evolution. This is all random, right? But once you become conscious of unity, of the existence of a force that binds us all together, not binds, sounds like it has a negative connotation, but like that connects us all together, which is love, then you start to understand unity consciousness, or rather non-duality consciousness, which is what this is. And that's when you start making the transition into fourth density, because once you understand that we are all connected, then you can choose, okay, well, if we're all connected, that means if I help another, I'm really helping myself, because that person is me, just in a different body. But if you hurt another, while understanding that we are connected, then that means you're choosing service to self, because regardless of that, if that person is you understand that, then you just seek to control that version of you, and you don't care, which you would be kind of defined as like a madness. And Source allows this. Yeah, go ahead. You have free will. You can choose whatever path you want. But proceeding down this negative path, Ross says there will be a dead end in a sense, because you cannot go farther than fifth density. So, it's like, I compare it to like the service to others path being close to the sun. So you're like around the sun, you're feeling the warmth of it. And then choosing service to self will be leaving and going further out into space and experiencing a sense of coldness or suffering until you hit a point. And at that point, you can't go any further, because you'll die. Well, in this example, at least, of coldness, of hypothermia. So you're kind of blocked off, and you can choose to stay in that misery and experience the utmost suffering, and you kind of like sever your connection to Source because you've gotten so far away. It's still there, but like you can't really feel the heat at all anymore. So you're just so cold. And that's what cold is. It's a lack of heat. And that's what fear is. It's a lack of love. So you've gotten so far. Or you can have the realization that, oh, this is not what I really want. I want to return to Source. I want to feel the love, the heat again. Right? So then that's how you make the transition from 5D negative to 6D positive. Because from 4D negative, then you'll go to 5D negative, and that's where you stop. But if you choose to go to the service to others, you'll be in a 4D positive, and things are much more cohesive, much more harmonious. You function together. You are in the lesson of love. You are now experiencing love and how to harness it and how to use it, and the lessons behind the love. And then from there, you move into fifth dimension, or fifth density, which is more of a wisdom density. So here you are learning the lesson of wisdom. You may have heard of the duality between wisdom and love, whereas they both function together and they both need one another. It's kind of like the brain and the heart, using them both in tandem, in combination. This is similarly, but you will still, you obviously still have your love, but in this fifth density, you are more urged to spend time alone, to dive within. This is kind of what Buddha was all about. So imagine that we had Christ and Buddha, love and wisdom, teachings, both flooding into third density reality, helping us. So yeah, you're encouraged to learn more about yourself, learn the knowledge and how to use it effectively. And then you get the sixth density, which is a unity consciousness again, but it's a collective soul, a social memory complex described by Ra, where basically it's one mind, so everyone else's thoughts become your thoughts, and you don't even have this experience of separation anymore. It just, everything is so connected. And this is where the lessons of wisdom and love will apply, because now you know how to use love much more efficiently. It is a understanding that, yes, I need to be very loving, or I am this love, this boundless love, but it's kind of like channeled and used effectively. So Ra gives an example of like being a martyr. Yeah, that's great. You know, you can come to third density or whatever, fourth density, and die for something you love, and that's amazing. You know, it's a great example. But to always do that, or for everyone to do that, or you know, to do that in every example, would not be as efficient as you could have maybe done. You know, there maybe were other ways, or you know, other lessons. For example, like this is what I've always thought about. If something is so disconnected from source, yet you understand that it is you, and you understand that you want to give it mercy and forgive and let it be and exist, but the fact that you do will cause immense chaos and nothing but suffering for others, and you know that that needs to stop. Do you still let that being exist? Are they beyond repair? This is where wisdom comes in and says, listen, the most loving thing to do would not be to let that thing exist, but to actually force it to either devolve or send it back to source and reset its whole evolutionary cycle to where it starts back in the first density. Some people just, or some entities just don't want to be heard or don't want to hear what you have to say. So that's where all these lessons will come in. And then seventh density would be a return to source or the higher self. I would like to say something closer to higher self, maybe not source altogether, because the way these densities function is kind of like a piano. So you have keys 1 through 7, and then the 8th key is a transition key, right? So then you go into the next set of octaves. So, you know, and then who knows, it's probably some never-ending cycle that just connects back to itself. And it's probably a never-ending game of source remembering and forgetting itself. Because I believe we're all part of that source, or maybe there are other dimensions. I don't know. It's not necessarily described in the Law of One, but it's just something to think about. Yeah, and so this whole process lasts billions of years. Apparently the third density is the shortest one. So we have a nice small window of opportunity to wake up and realize which path we'd like to go down. But it is a very important one, as it can obviously, it's a forking of the road. But yeah, definitely check it out. Check out the book, Law of One material. I believe there's like 2 versions, a newer version and an older version. But interesting stuff, you know. And it definitely coincides with a lot of the other materials and a lot of other spiritual subjects. And it functions in a question and answer sort of format, because Ra actually very much so, pretty much all of these ascended beings in consciousness respect one's free will to knowledge. So some material may be written in different forms of language, so that only people with higher understanding will understand, will get the message. But Ra only answers what is asked. Okay, so they cannot really come forward and just start preaching to you all these things and telling you this is the way, this is how it must be, because you may not be ready for such a thing, right? So it's all about respecting. It's a universal law, really, the free will, and not being imposed upon it. Otherwise, it will depolarize the entity's consciousness that it infringed upon your free will. But yeah, If you guys like the video, please give it a like, share it, and let's get some more people learning about this stuff. The people that are ready, at least, right? They'll attract these types of video, this type of knowledge. But yeah, all right, guys, have a good one.